A few weeks ago, Narpy published a lengthy video explaining our relationship. I wanted to take time to thoroughly talk about my relationship with him. I've had a couple weeks offline to properly think about things, and I had previously published a response online regarding everything a couple weeks ago, which I feel were very flawed and emotionally charged. I instantly admitted guilt, said everything in his video was true, and left. I ended up removing my response shortly after it was published, as I felt like it downplayed things inside of the video and didn't really go into much detail, and I needed to reassess everything and figure out how to properly respond. I apologize for taking the time that I have on it. I previously sent him an email a week ago regarding our relationship, which I came to the conclusion that I still feel it's necessary to add context after seeing a video by YouTuber Lanza, which described our relationship much more in depth than any other video I've ever seen. It helped me remember everything with him that happened between us and several other people. This video will be going into several different sections, including our relationship, our fallout, the document I created, and how I handled everything following our fallout. There will also be other things mentioned for contextual purposes, and throughout this video I will be referring to him as Max. I would please ask that you watch the entire video before coming to any conclusions, and to put any previous feelings you've had about my other responses aside for my explanation of this. The purpose of this video is to provide crucial context that was missing from Max's video. In the summer of 2019, I met Max through mutuals, and we began talking and became friends very quickly, as we were both popular content creators and related to each other a lot. He was 17 years old, turning 18 in 3 months, and I was 20 years old. Our age gap specifically was 3 years and 3 weeks apart in age, and we had gotten close and affectionate very fast, really before either of us got to actually truly know each other. I personally did not find anything morally outrageous of such an age difference. There's a lot of debate online regarding this, but in the end, this is how I felt back in 2019. Our friendship would turn into a romantic fling, where we were very intimate with one another and said that we loved each other. It was something that, as our relationship progressed, I grew greatly uncomfortable with how sexual the relationship was, and had no idea how to communicate this to him. He would push our conversations into being sexual constantly. I shouldn't have given into that, but I felt obligated as he was my best friend and I just wanted to make him happy. I would consider what we did very mutual. However, my mentality towards it has really already been stated. I asked him one day very nicely and politely if he could please stop pushing sexual advances towards me. His response to this was immediately getting extremely upset at me, and he would not talk to me for several months following. From October to December of 2019, we would find ourselves not talking as much as he felt like I had no interest in him as a person, and would constantly guilt-trip me about it. This is absolutely not the case, as I just was simply uncomfortable with the dynamic that we had once shared. I felt like things had moved way too fucking fast, and didn't feel comfortable with an extremely sexual dynamic. Something that he would constantly push and seek. Over the time period that we wouldn't talk, he would seek this from other people. He would brag to me about how he'd seek 20-plus-year-old men as a minor, and even sent me a screenshot of him initiating an intimate conversation with another adult. He was very vocal about this, and would share messages he used to flirt and engage with sexual relationships with other adults. One of the other people he got this from was an old friend, who went under the name of E inside of Narpy's YouTube video. I will briefly speak upon the relationship for contextual purposes, as Max himself stated in the video that he had no idea what he did to him, and only ran off of a couple of screenshots from a few years ago. While Max was 17 and E was 18 years old, they would have a friends with benefits type relationship. Max would pressure E into sending nude photographs, despite E making it very clear that he was conflicted about it. Max, however, would push this even further, stating that he could simply delete the images afterwards. Max would be consistently abusive towards E, and whenever he brought this up to Max about how it was hurting him badly, Max would downplay his own actions and make him feel even worse. A year later, after Max was emotionally abusive towards him and they had a falling out, Max would go back to his messages with E and take a screenshot of them engaging in sexual behavior, and wanted to use this against him as Max was 17 and E was 18 years old. I confronted E on this myself, to which he had to share this screenshot showing Max himself absolutely pressuring these advances, which is something Max intentionally left out only up until I confronted E about it. Max was quite literally blackmailing my friend. E, rightfully, had Max blocked to this day for purposely twisting the relationship and threatening to expose him for something that wasn't true. It wouldn't stop there either, as Max would go onto his own large Twitter account and retweet memes making fun of the very person he was being abusive towards, ganging up on him with his friends. He was misusing his own platforms he had to harass and bully someone that he was being abusive towards. This scarred E significantly as he was being harassed by someone who had a much larger following than him and had no chance of defending himself. December of 2019, Max and I would regain contact where we continued our relationship, mostly out of obligation from my part, as I did not want to upset him again by rejecting his advances. As time progressed, we stopped doing this, and around his 18th birthday in January of 2020, he would immediately begin a relationship with a person who was 16 while he was 18. I'm not calling this age gap immoral or predatory whatsoever, and anyone who tries to make it as that is a fucking moron. I will refer to this 16-year-old as B. We would not talk much while he was dating this person. The relationship between him and Max would last a few months, where Max would engage in very reckless behavior throughout the relationship with B. Max would hook up with a stranger from an app named Howler and would be dishonest about it towards his partner. Max would be confronted about this and he admitted to cheating on his partner, promising not to do it again. Shortly after, Max would yet again cheat on B for the second time, which resulted in a large call out on Twitter regarding his behavior. In response, Max would message me privately claiming that I was the reason that he had cheated on his partner, stating that, "If you had continued to be sexual with me, I never would have cheated." This statement is incredibly important because him saying, "I really am that shitty and would have functioned that way," meaning he was completely and entirely aware of his own actions. He was not a minor when he was doing this stuff. He was an adult. I cannot speak for this person and how they currently feel about this relationship, and frankly, I don't really care nor believe it really matters here. It has been several years, and I can only assume that both of them have moved forward from this. It is merely providing important context for people to know what was transpiring behind these messages. Max's final response to this situation was going onto Twitter, threatening to take his life, and then he was put in a mental ward for over a month. I would constantly call and ask my friends on his whereabouts past this point, as I had no idea what had happened to him. He would regain contact with me in May 2020, where he and I would begin talking once more, and he seemed in higher spirits after an extremely serious situation that happened. This, however, did not last long, as he would very quickly begin to treat me like garbage again. In his YouTube video he published a few weeks ago, when I had a conversation with him about addressing this online, he claimed I guilt-tripped him with my grandfather.
Instead, he would deflect and talk about my actions during 2020, using his grandfather as a pivot point and blaming me for the time he'd lost.
This needs a lot more context that he knows is being left out, or at least is being worded in a way to which it leaves it up to the viewer's imagination to what was really going on. In June 2020, my grandfather died. This is a very impactful moment of my life, and it's something that I let Max be aware of several times, both through Twitter and Discord. Though our logs only contain one side of our conversation, he did respond acknowledging it, and I had a very valid reason to not be close with him or anyone at the time, given that I was going through something so serious in my life. The point that I am making here before I begin talking about anything else regarding this is he was fully aware of the fact that this was going on in my life. While I was preparing to attend a funeral for my grandfather, Max would get upset at me that I was spending less time with him. I would text him while I was there, scared at retaliation from him, as if I was never doing enough for him. Shortly after I returned, he would blame me as the reason for his suicide attempts. He would send me razor blades he bought on Amazon, would black out his Discord profile picture, and never talk to me about a thing, saying, "Let's hope I die before I turn 19 years old." All while he was fully aware of what was going on and the loss in my life. We would never talk about anything at all. We would never once have a single conversation about anything going on. It was him constantly getting upset at me and growing more and more abusive towards me. Me mentioning that I had a difficult time getting over how he treated me in this situation was not a guilt trip, nor was it a sympathy attempt. It's honesty. I was dealing with something so deeply personal, and he made it about himself, when this time should have never been about him. And I told him countless times, "Hey, my fucking grandfather died," and it was completely ignored. I just wish he was patient towards me and understanding here, and it hurts to even think about for me. I did not give up on him or hang him out to dry. I was hurting and I needed to heal. And this specific situation occurring is what drove me away from him. I was always there for Max. I helped him with his twit-longers that he had previously put out, and I was always emotionally there for him. But I did not know what to do considering the way he was treating me, so we ended up talking less and less. This upset him even more, which would result in him blowing up at me in November of 2020 for quote-unquote leading him on, which is just simply not true. I was not ignoring him or hanging him out to dry. I did not want a sexual relationship with him and was uncomfortable by how fast things had progressed. He got more and more upset, threatening to eventually kill himself over me in November. In November of 2020, I would cut him off and ask him for space, as I could not handle what he was doing. And in response to this, he would message me on Twitter with a long message. He would be extremely manipulative inside of this message, saying that I put no effort into anything and that the picture of his cut wrist was my fault, and that I never cared for him, which, as shown, is clearly not the case. I would block him on Twitter following this exchange, where he would then stalk me onto my Telegram account to call me all sorts of things, that I was bipolar, and that I was inflating my ego by blocking him off. Given the events that I've already described for the past few months, I genuinely just could not handle how he was treating me. And after months and months of constant emotional abuse and being kicked through the mud, I produced my document about him, mainly as a way for me and several other friends trying to escape the situation that was ongoing between us. While it definitely is one-sided regarding our relationship in the document and does have flaws, the abusive factors still stand very true, and it was genuinely ruining my life. I had no idea what the fuck to do or how to exit this situation. I did not know how to handle him putting his cut wrist up to our Discord messages saying that I did this all to him. I regret the document 100%, but in a sense I feel like it was very necessary, as I was not the only person being treated like this. It was a lot of other people who had no platform to defend themselves like E, and were constantly getting bullied by him and had no way out of it. Personally, I feel he never would have stopped had that document never been made. He was showing zero signs of stopping, considering he was retweeting memes making fun of E in December of 2020 when he was nearly 19 years old. There is a lot of other people that I haven't accounted for in this video that Max treated in a similar fashion. I only talked about things within the context of our relationship only. Following the document situation that happened between me and him in 2021, I was thrown into an extremely shitty situation involving two of my real-life friends. For those that do not know, one of my friends accused Fire Sale of sexual assault, and I shifted my entire focus on making sure that this friend was safe. I'm not going to regurgitate myself on this story, but this made me very repulsed from the internet, and considering the extent of things that happened then, which is very personal and I am not going into. I exited this situation in the summer of 2022, which immediately right after, Max wanted me to make a statement regarding the document. I was not there mentally, as I had just gone through a very stressful year in my life, and realistically should have not been talking to him at all, as I ended up saying a lot of things that I regret. One of the things that I did was end up admitting guilt to him, because I genuinely did feel guilty about our relationship. And after I refused to do anything, Max would cut me off in October of 2022, and my focus went to trying to fix my life. I lost a lot of weight, and I did alter my life objectively for the better by doing more positive things, like bodybuilding, trash cleanup, and trying to restore my faith. He would recontact me in May of 2023 following a swatting incident, which I helped him figure out how to protect himself and ensure his safety. We agreed by staying in contact with one another until he needed to respond, and after some Twitter posts about him blew up, he produced his YouTube video of another friend of his. He asked me before this video was made to make a statement about it, and I truly just had no idea how to go about it, as I've honestly just been trying to better myself and improve my life from what I once was. So I refused, until my friends began confronting me on the matter. Overall, the way that I handled things was quite horrible, and I absolutely have wrongs when it comes to us. It needs to be understood that this was an extremely complex situation with lots of crevices and details that needed to be said. I immediately admitted guilt and made the terrible responses that I did out of having a guilty conscience. I have been extremely vocal to him that I felt there was a lot of miscommunication between us. Like I said, we never once sat down and talked about what the hell was going on between us, and instead of blacking out your Discord profile picture, or sending me pictures of your cut wrist, or making me feel terrible in some of the worst parts of my life, you could have just talked to me like a normal person. I, along with countless others, was abused very badly by Max, and that is not something I'm going to sit here and downplay. I do not believe he is this person anymore, as he's been very vocal about trying to make amends with anyone that he can, but his video doesn't tell the full story. He was an extremely abusive person, and there's quite a lot of people forgiving him when it really is nobody's place to except the people that he treated like this. I do not believe he deserved a platform with how he was treating people at the time. This serves as my side regarding my relationship with Narpy, and I will not be commenting any further on it. I'm sorry I took so long to work on this, but I hope it's understandable given the amount of stress that came from all of this. In the end, none of this should have ever happened, but this is what happened between us. Again, I will remain offline from this channel, and if I need to post anything, it's going to be on Koneko. I personally have zero interest in Roblox content creation at all, and I haven't for several years. I've gone ahead and removed a lot of people from my life that I met from Roblox, and I'm going to try to be productive. I want to work on getting my GED and trying to improve my life, as that's literally all I've been trying to do for the past 3 years. I would like to thank friends of mine who have been there for me to emotionally support me throughout the past few weeks. A lot of my friends cut me off and blocked me, but there were some who were immediately there for me to reach out to ensure my safety and helped me figure out how to even properly respond to this. I never would have been able to make this video without them, and I cannot be more thankful for my friends being there for me. The final thing I want to say is the only person who ever did the slightest bit of research regarding me and Max's relationship was one guy named Lanza, who did an amazing job compiling our relationship in a non-biased manner. There was so much more to our relationship that I simply hadn't gotten around to sharing. I was not immediately prepared like Max was, as he had been preparing for this for months beforehand. I needed time to work on this and shouldn't have responded initially the way that I did, and I do apologize for that. I don't blame anyone for taking it at face value, considering my initial responses I made surrounding the situation.